Coming to you from the University of Minnesota, Rochester, our town. Welcome to Our Town here from UMR. Nicole, my Our Town co-host, and her husband Seth welcomed a new little girl to the family, and we are excited that everyone is here today. Welcome back.
Thank you.
This is wonderful. I think it would be more fun. I mean, I'm supposed to ask the questions, but I think it'd be more fun if you interviewed Seth. I don't know.
We could tag team. We could
introduce your new gift to your family.
This is Zoraida Nfonoyim-Hara. She's got quite a long name, and she was born on November 18th.
And she's sleeping.
She's sound asleep.
She's
a very
happy right now.
smart girl, sleeping through an interview
Yep.
on TV.
Letting us do the hard work here.
So you had, I got to meet, I think it was your stepmom was here prior to. Have you had a lot of family helping out or getting in the way?
Mostly helping out, not getting in the way. My stepmom was here with my dad for a couple of weeks. My dad was here for the weekend that I gave birth, and then he had to leave. And then Seth's family came for a couple of weeks around Thanksgiving.
And can we'll try to get a shot. She's just a little snug in a bug in there. How's it been going? As swimmingly, sleeping as easily as this?
You know, it's been going pretty well, I would say. You know, you hear a lot of horror stories about not getting any sleep, and I mean, we're certainly not sleeping as well as we used to. But I would say, I mean, she's been pretty great, and you know, we're taking everything in stride and adjusting as we can. I think there's been a lot of learning by all parties, kind of in the last few weeks.
Sure, and I think we've tried to maintain our sense of humor. So, yeah, instead of getting too frustrated, I think we try to make it funny.
Oh.
Now, I was saying the name Zoraida. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. How did that come about? Where did the name come from?
Sure. So I was born in the Dominican Republic, and I had a kind of a strange sort of early beginnings in that I was taken care of by a lot of different people. One of the women that took care of me for a good chunk of my early life, her name was Zoraida, and I called her abuela, which is in Spanish means grandma, for all of my life. She died when I was a teen, and I named my daughter after her. Just to kind of honor her memory, and I just have really warm memories of her. I lived with her for quite some time in my early youth, and yeah.
Oh, that's so wonderful. That's a beautiful, beautiful story. Any shout outs to doctors, nurses? How was that whole process?
I think we learned that a pretty early lesson in parenting, that things don't go as planned. And so labor and delivery, everything went well in the end. You know, we had a healthy mom and a healthy baby. A few hiccups along the way. So we worked with the midwives at Mayo Clinic, and we had a really great experience, I think, with them throughout the whole process. We got a lot of support. We also had a doula that came and worked with us as well. And so overall, yeah, I think we had a good support team in place, and when things didn't go as expected, they helped us through it.
Okay, well, that's wonderful. We did get did you see the shot there?
A little shot of the
Nice
face.
shot there. Have you gotten used to the, when people come to visit, they just say, hi, how are you? And then they go right?
Yeah, they have we don't matter anymore, which is totally fine.
Because that was hard for me to get used to, you know, being with a huge ego. You know, expect people, your friends to come see you.
Yeah.
They don't really care that
interested.
much.
But see, that's why I strap her on, so they have to at least, you know, talk to me a little bit in order to get to her.
That's true. We do spend much of the day with her like this, wrapped up on us. So.
Well, it's a big change. It's going to change the whole dynamics within.
Yeah.
That's a new learning experience for you.
Yeah.
Has that been a challenge, I would assume, a little bit going forward?
Yeah, I mean, I think life will never be the same again, which I think we knew when that's what we were signing up for. And yeah, I think we'll be learning every day as we go about each other and about the baby.
Yeah, I mean, as we were getting ready for the baby, there was a lot of reading. We have several books in our house that we've been kind of pouring through. Yeah. And Nicole has been exploring the blogosphere and all the mommy blogs and everything quite hardcore, just, you know, when things pop up. So we've been doing our best to get as much information as possible and figure things out.
And you have friends. It's good to have a little network in town.
Yeah, we've got we've only been in Rochester a couple of years, but we've got some really awesome friends.
Here's two more little friends, some shameless self-promotion for PBS.
Best.
But from KSMQ,
Goodness.
probably a little
best.
young, but a little big bird.
Oh, well, we grew up with these too, so this will be
Definitely.
great.
So there you
you.
go, and she can drool on them at will.
And that will happen.
That will definitely happen. Thank you.
Well, congratulations
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
very much.
Our Town is brought to you in part by the following amazing people and organizations.
Al Specialty Marine. Serving boaters for nearly 40 years with a commitment to really taking care of their customers.
Al Specialty Marine.
The Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund and the citizens of Minnesota.
And the members of KSMQ Public Television. Thank you.
Happy New Year, Rochester, and welcome to our new location at the University of Minnesota, Rochester. Coming up on the show, we find out how Olmsted County is helping people get out of poverty and on a new life track. We get to know an accomplished musician from Rochester's past who just happened to be blind. And if you have a startup, we've found you a desk. Up first, we get a new perspective on the open road in this week's Our Culture segment.
Yeah, the apple pie gets better the deeper you go into Iowa, according to whoever wrote that. I'm blanking. I'm C. Anthony Huber. I'm an artist. Well, actually, I've been a photographer for about 30 years, so I think I've always had a strong inclination towards my visual environment. And about 30 years ago, I started taking photographs of a lot of urban settings, but it's been about 8 years since I've actually been working with paints and other medium to translate those inspirations to a different format, which is to use the visual language on canvas. So I consider myself a painter, even though at heart I think I'm still a photographer. And then I also use very unusual mediums like concrete and asphalt to put on canvas, but I still consider those painting mediums. So 30 years from photography, about 8 to 10 in working with it in another medium. I think it's amazing when you step out your door, you can see all sorts of what I call inspiration points. I'm fascinated by what I call abstract language of intersection markings. For example, when they lift a manhole cover that has a line and then they put it back down and it doesn't line up again, that's proof that something's happened there. It's proof of existence. And so not only does it create an interesting abstract language between a broken line, it's also telling a story of something that has happened within that environment. And so there's really a story behind all of that abstract language. I find the language just beautiful. I want to capture that history in a visual way because I find it very attractive. I applied for it's a place called the Vermont Studio Center, and it's the largest internationally based artist residency in the United States, and they have writers and artists that get invited based on grants to come there. So I had applied a couple of times and finally was accepted and went out this November, and I spent the entire month of November out there. And they give you basically a room, they give you 3 meals a day, they give you studio space. I had a really large studio to work in. It's in a small town called Johnson, Vermont, very rural. It's right on the Gihon River. And I went out there with the idea that I was going to try to, again, work with new work. I personally made a breakthrough there, and I really felt like it changed the way I do my own work. And had I not gone there, had I not been in that environment by the river, been around all those others, I would not have discovered, I think, the work that I am now going to pursue. So I've purchased a Honda Element advertisement, which are no longer made, but it's kind of a small little van, and I'm going to be able to live in that, and I'm going to travel around the country in various different directions to take my paintings to various rivers and put them in there and be able to photograph those and I'm just going to hit the road for as long as my finances will allow me, which we'll see how that works out. But also just being able to be moving. Rivers are important because they're kind of always flowing, and I love that. And that's kind of how I feel in a way. I feel like maybe I'm that guy. Just always wanted to be out moving and kind of not stopping. And I really feel like this is the time to do that in my life. You just don't always get chances to sort of do that, and that's what I've decided to do right now.
For more information about this story and other Our Town features, connect with us on Facebook, Twitter at KSMQ #OurTown, or ksmq.org/OurTown.
I just fail to see the difference. Find the boy, find the girl. I just fail to see the difference. A chunk of me, a brain, a heart.
Throughout the last few weeks, the Rochester Convention and Visitors Bureau has been rolling out a new logo and slogan for the city. Experience Minnesota's Rochester, America's city of care and innovation. Corresponding branding for the Mayo Civic Center and Rochester Sports, formerly the Rochester Amateur Sports Commission, have followed. The new marketing effort will serve as a guide for the three organizations during the next 5 years. The new year brings a raise for the minimum wage in Minnesota. Employees at large companies of over $500,000 in annual gross revenues will receive at least $9.65 per hour. Workers at small companies at least $7.87 per hour. The Department of Labor and Industry sets the new minimum based on the costs of goods and services. During the Rochester City Council meeting this past Wednesday, the council did not approve the comprehensive plan. After considerable discussion, the motion to approve the plan failed. It actually approved on a vote of 4-3, but did not meet the 2/3 majority threshold, need 5 votes. Council then approved a motion to reopen the public hearing and continue the agenda item at its February 21st meeting. Stay tuned. Also on Wednesday, Mayor Ardell Brady announced he will not be seeking another term for mayor in 2018. Dear Future Self, this is the latest exhibit at the Parkside Gallery at Charterhouse, opens Saturday, January 13th. Youth ages 12 to 16 showcase their work. An opening reception from 1:30 to 3 features refreshments and live music by the Southeastern Minnesota Youth Orchestra. It's a fun, free way to spend a winter afternoon. Check it out, charterhouse-mayo.org. And Winterfest 16 is on the horizon. Activities for all ages, fundraising for worthy causes, a reason to get out of the house in winter begins Thursday, January the 18th. Check out all the details at rochesterwinterfest.com. Coming up next, Danielle Teal is checking out the entrepreneurial hub that is called Collider in this week's Walkabout segment.
I'm Danielle Teal with Our Town Walkabout. My guest here is Jamie Sunsbach. We're at Collider Co-working.
So Collider Co-working is a place for startups, freelancers, and remote workers to sort of have a home in downtown Rochester. It's a chance for them to get started or keep growing their established business. We think sometimes it's maybe too expensive to have an office space downtown, so why not start with a desk in a really fun and cool location?
Do people get work done in this type of environment?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I think we have an onboarding policy where we tell everyone, hey, the first thing you're supposed to be doing here is getting your work done. Another benefit is the social aspect. So when people have some downtime, the ability to network is, I think, invaluable.
What kind of work gets done here?
A bit of everything. We wanted to be as open to anyone as possible. A lot of the businesses that are here do rely on tech. We have people who are video production companies here. We have accountants. We have social media experts.
I manage 15 hotels around the U.S., all marketing, digital marketing efforts. So just here kind of going through, doing some audits and sending it out to my teams. I am a remote worker, and I could be working at home, but I find myself more productive in an office type setting. And it's great to socialize too. I'm a social person, and if I don't start talking to people, I start kind of going a little crazy.
Co-working as a trend is growing 20% year over year across the world at this point.
And I see coffee.
Coffee.
Important.
Very important.
Especially in an environment like this where
Yes.
where you have to work.
At the Nat Collider, all soft drinks and coffee and everything is free because we want people to stay powered.
Can I
throughout the
work
day.
here?
You can for the right price, for sure.
What I like about this place is you can have chair races.
In Olmsted County, making a plan to beat poverty.
Paul Fleisner describes this new pilot for Olmsted County. Stay with us.
Our past, remembering what made us who we are today. Brought to you by the History Center of Olmsted County.
Agnes Aggie Hogan arrived in Rochester in 1894 at age 13 with her widowed mother Adelaide and foster sister Ella Graff. Aggie had both eyes removed at Mayo Clinic and enrolled in the Minnesota School for the Blind in Faribault at age 17. In 1900, Aggie was selected to represent the Goddess of Liberty in Rochester's 4th of July parade. She rode in an impressive carriage, and a newspaper described how her long fair hair made a splendid representation of the goddess. After graduation, she taught music from 1910 to 1935 and composed a variety of patriotic and religious music. One of her most celebrated compositions was titled Star of the East and was created for the Rochester Methodist Episcopal Church's 1918 Christmas cantata. The piece included 140 song and speaking parts. A newspaper reviewer declared Aggie one of the most talented musicians of the community. After Adelaide's death in 1932, Aggie continued to live with Ella at their family home until she died on October 28, 1955.
All my girls, show 'em you a lady. Tell the world, say you proud to be a lady. All my girls, show 'em you a lady. Tell the world.
All too often, poverty is a generational inheritance.
Paul Fleisner, Director of Olmsted County Community Services, joins us today. Welcome to our town. Talk about this important topic. Glad you're here.
Glad to be here.
So why can't people readily see a way out of poverty?
You know, I can't say I have all the answers to poverty, but I worked in this field for over 30 years, and I think we haven't created good pathways out of poverty for people. In fact, I would say the system we've created as a nation keeps people in poverty more than it allows them to move out of poverty. By that I mean, I'll give you an example. If you get to about $20 an hour and you're a single parent with a couple of kids, and you take that next $1 an hour raise, you probably lose several $1,000s in child care assistance. Are you going to take that raise? No. So we've created a poverty prison, in my opinion, that really keeps people in poverty. And unless you have this giant raise or giant change in your life circumstance, it's hard to get out. One of the reasons that we're looking at something different is, after 30 years, has our society really moved the needle on poverty? No. So let's try something different. So I don't have all the answers, but I do have a passion for addressing the issue of poverty.
What do the numbers look like in Olmsted County, and how do they stack up to our region?
Well, in terms of our region, you know, we're not a super high poverty county, but we do have 13,000 families. That's a lot of families in a community of 154,000. So, you know, we have some work to do, obviously. And it's a bigger issue across the country. We're not unique in that there's a very large federal system around poverty. To me, it's a very clunky, not consumer-friendly kind of system. And we have to change it to make a difference in these people's lives and truly find a pathway out of poverty.
And the county is piloting this program called Pathways to Prosperity. Can you tell us a little bit about what that program is going to be providing?
Well, what we want to do is create an alternate system and prove that we can move people out of poverty. And the way we're going to do that is probably in partnership with some foundations and other folks. We're also working closely with Dakota County and the Metro. And we want to work with families, parents 26 and younger with little kids. That's a high-risk group typically. And what we want to do is give them flexible benefits, more like a universal benefit set. Right now, if you come into our shop and you qualify for child care, food support, cash support, health care, those programs all operate kind of in isolation. What we want to do is say, how can we use those flexibly to meet the needs of individual families? Because we think that's the key to moving people out of poverty. For example, if a family qualifies for child care, health care, and those other things, but their main issue is housing, what if we could use some of those same dollars, not new dollars, flexibly to stabilize housing that will allow them then to get employment and move on? Each family circumstance is different, but our current federal and state programs treat everybody the same, and they're very rigid. And so the feds are probably not going to allow us to have all that flexibility, so we're going to try to fund a separate system and compare it to people that go through our regular system and show that we can create that pathway.
So do you have the families figured out yet on who's going to take part in this, or folks watching this program? How can they be part of it?
Well, we're not ready to launch quite yet. We've got to build some systems in place to kind of create an alternative system to what we have in place. But yes, we have identified, we have a team called our Family Support Team that work with the very families that we're talking about. Our staff see the frustrations for the families. They also are frustrated themselves. They're the ones that have identified these barriers, and that if we had some flexibility, these families would move on rather than be stuck. And so our intention is to probably start the pilot in the spring or summer of next year. We're working with the University of Minnesota to develop
2019 or
2018.
Okay,
sorry.
Oh, that's okay. We just passed New
no,
Year's,
18. We're ready to roll. We just need some tools in place. We're building an assessment called the Individual Service Assessment through the University of Minnesota. We're going to start playing with that tool soon. We're also partnering with the Children's Defense Fund at the state, a state nonprofit, and they have a tool that will help us project these fiscal cliffs that families hit. And we want to be able to say, if rather than people immediately dropping off benefits, is there a way we can gradually move them across these cliffs that they fall off, and then they say, no, I can't take that next raise, so they stay stuck. We're going to try to move them from federal poverty level to maybe 200% of federal poverty level, where they can more likely move on and be self-sufficient.
Can you see that screen right there? Can you talk a little bit about what that shows?
Yeah, that particular screen shows some work done in Montgomery County, Maryland, and it's real similar to Minnesota. We're building a very similar tool where it shows that in that state, a family will hit those cliffs. And it also shows certain career paths that will help you get out of them, but along the way where they might run into problems with benefits being taken away. The problem is we've got to provide the right incentives, and we have to create this glide path out of the system versus these abrupt changes, and that's what we want to prove. We think if we do that, we can make some policy changes that'll go beyond these families that we're talking about to broader people that are stuck in poverty.
Sure. And this individualized sort of approach to families, how will that also maybe affect some of the disparities that exist in poverty programs?
That's a great question. I think that is the reason that we have so much disparity, because we've trapped a whole population and then we tend to blame them for not working their way out of poverty, and yet we've given them no tools to do that. And so, in my opinion, we will see an impact on equity because we will have a path that makes sense. People will take it. There will be some natural incentives to go to the place where you accept those new jobs. We're also building some pathway to employment with some partners in the community. For example, the Workforce Development Inc. here in town, along with some other partners, have built pathways into healthcare, into construction. Well, we're going to build a couple pathways into county employment for things like eligibility workers, folks doing detention work at our adult jail and our juvenile jail, because we're struggling to get people into those jobs. Why wouldn't we, and they're good paying jobs, why wouldn't we create pathways that support this whole notion of moving in a different direction? So we're trying to marry a lot of different things together here so it makes the path a much smoother ride for people.
And
Oh, go ahead.
well, regarding employment, I think the last number I read was like a quarter of Americans living in poverty are actually in some form of employment, which I think boggles a lot of people's minds. So how does this program sort of help that the working poor in
Oh, that's exactly the problem. Excuse me. A job is not a career, and we have to start moving toward technical skills and careers, and that's why I talked about these other pathways. Those are moving into actual careers. We can't count a job as something that we're then done with our work, because if it's I'll give you an example. If you're a family of 3, 1 parent and 2 kids, the federal poverty level puts you at about $20,000. Well, that's a $9-something an hour job. You can't survive on that in this community. So our goal is to get you to at least 200% of poverty, so $40,000 to $41,000, and that's when we know we'll have success. And so we want to get to that place, and the only way to get it is to build skills and support people in education and training so they can move in that direction.
Well, Paul Fleissner, thank you for the important work you do, and thank you for joining us.
You're
so
welcome.
I hope you'll come back and tell us how it's going.
I'd be happy to do that. Thank you so much.
You bet.
Thank you.
And that's it for us today. Join us next week when we meet a couple of broomball champs.
Thanks for watching Our Town, a show about Rochester, here from the University of Minnesota, Rochester. We'll see you next week.
I'm a lady. Oh my God.